You're listening to Building Bold Connections, a podcast where we explore the creative ways business leaders have solved professional challenges to gain success and build net worth from their network. On today's episode, we have entrepreneur Nicole Anderson, CEO of Her Wine. Here is episode 3 of Building Bold Connections.
Welcome to Building Bold Connections. I'm your host, Tyra Burton. On today's episode, we have the pleasure of hearing from Nicole Anderson. She's the CEO of Her Wines. Welcome, Nicole. How are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I am making it.
Yes. It's Wednesday.
It is. Well, I am excited to talk to you because I just think you have such an amazing entrepreneurial spirit. And I'm really interested in how you became one. Were you actively seeking it or did it just kind of fall into your path?
You know, it's really funny. So growing up, I always dabbled in entrepreneurial ventures. So when I'm talking like kid growing up. So I was the candy lady in my neighborhood. I did poems, for people. I used to write custom poems. So I would take your name and create a poem based off of asking you a questionnaire. And this is middle school, right? So
you were side hustling early.
Yeah, I had to. My parents instilled that in us. Yeah. But even as I progressed through my my educational career, I actually transitioned. So I just knew, I was very focused at climbing the corporate ladder. So I knew I was going to become the CMO, a chief marketing officer.
You were ready.
Yeah, I just knew. I was you know what, it's entrepreneur stuff one day when I find my thing. But for right now, my passion and focus was just, to climb the corporate ladder as quickly as possible. And typical millennial style too, I just knew graduating high school or college, I was I'm getting 6-figure incomes and I'm getting a C-suite immediately after graduating. Yeah, I just knew. That's typical millennial. We just knew we were graduating. There was no climbing. It was just bam, I need to get that job.
There wasn't a path.
Yeah, but that didn't happen. That was not the story.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So what was the first part of that story?
So I interned a lot. I was actually very intentional with my schooling. And so I knew I wanted to do marketing. So I knew that was going to be, the path, the industry, so to speak. Right. But I didn't know what in marketing I wanted to do. So I did everything. I interned for Kaiser Permanente, Arby's in their corporate office. Yeah, that was really fun, actually.
That was fun.
It was. You never know, all the things that go into the marketing behind the imagery that we see for those type branding. It's so interesting. I did cybersecurity. Ooh. I did pest control. I know way too much about how to kill bugs than I probably need, but
we'll skip over that.
Yeah. But I did a lot of things, dabbled in a lot of industries as well as types of marketing positions, and landed my very first job as an account coordinator. And then climbed my way up and eventually ended up getting the role that I wanted. I became a marketing director and I was managing a team and it was great, but I wasn't fulfilled. Something was missing. Yeah. And there lies wine. And here we are today.
Well, I know you're a wine enthusiast, right?
Yes.
So are you a snobby wine enthusiast? Are you over all the different types and how they smell and all that?
I'm not. I am the opposite, right?
Awesome.
I know. I just love wine. That's always been my drink of choice, even in college,
After you were 21,
After I was 21. Yes, exactly. Legal age. And that's a real story. But I didn't like the taste of alcohol and liquor. Mm-hmm. And so wine coolers, that was always kind of my go-to. And so I fell in love with it from there. And, but I never got into the snobby, this is from this grape and this region or anything it's
awesome if you know that.
Yeah, exactly. I was if you are a wine educator and you know those things, kudos, but that wasn't me.
So how did Her Wine come out of that kind of fun and exciting wine enthusiast?
Yeah. So, I was in a very interesting time in my life when I started this. So I was in the process of going through grad school. Yeah. So I was going to get my MBA And because I wanted a certain position, I ended up getting the position without having to, needing that degree. So in the midst of that transition, as well as I was also going through a divorce. So life was lifing. And
I like that.
Life was life. You can use that.
I think that's great.
I'll let you steal that one. But yeah, so I was looking for an outlet. And I started out making wine myself. I was getting bored with wine, which was crazy because I loved it. And I was like, I want to get something that was different. In the market at the time, it was just, Moscato, pink Moscato, red Moscato had just came out. You were seeing kind of variations, but nothing that was different. And I was like, I wonder if I can make wine myself. So Google YouTube Academy. I found some videos and I found a way to make wine myself. And that's how I really got started. And the marketing in me created this brand that I didn't even know what it would turn into. It was just something fun and it was a hobby and ended up progressing into Her Wines today.
Well, I know that you had to search for a strategic partnership because you can only make so much wine at your house. Yes. And I think that journey was a little long and problematic and a lot of turndowns. How did you deal with that?
Oh, my goodness. So fast forward, right? I started making wine myself. I ended up coming up with this name, and the brand name was actually Unwind. Yeah.
There's a story there. There
is a story there. And I thought it was brilliant. When I came up with the name, I was like, Unwind. And I'm like, with an E. It's like magical. Duh. No one's thought of this before. Little did I know they did.
As often happens.
Yes. So I launched this brand, and again, this was still a side thing. I'm still working a full-time job and building this. But I launched it September 2020. So we'll have to talk about that because that was a whole pandemic thing going on.
There's a story there too.
Yeah. But April, so not even 7 months into me, actually like launching my business, I get hit with a cease and desist letter from another company in Texas that was called Unwind.
Well,
yeah.
That was surprising, I bet.
It was surprising, scary.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever gotten one of those like super aggressively packaged lawsuits, but when they serve you, it is very intense.
It's like the fear of everything in you at once.
Yeah. And I felt like, oh my gosh, my baby that I'm just now building it's getting stripped away from me. Like I was so distraught about it. But it ended up, unfortunately, it became bigger than just the name Unwind. It became, So after doing some research, I had to hire a legal team. Now, mind you, again, 7 months in, so I don't have a formal, there is no money, right? There's no revenue coming in yet. We're just starting and I don't have a legal team. I'm not big like that.
Why would you think you needed one?
I know. Who would have thought? So, to get to that point and to, have to lawyer up essentially, right?
Absolutely.
In that process, we had to do discovery. We're looking for our angle to this case, and we found that there were countless other brands named Unwind as well.
Oh.
So we were like, well, why me, right? I'm small. I just started. The only underlying difference was that I was a minority-owned business. I was the only Black-owned business that they had reached out to.
So they hadn't targeted any other businesses?
None of the others. And what was even more interesting was when we asked them like, hey, what am I doing different than these companies? They're like, they could never say. So then we start to really like ask like, well, what, because I want to be compliant, right? I'm not trying to steal your name, but if there are other companies, let's be fair. And so once we started peeling back the layers and asking certain questions, they got a little, uneasy. And so we ended up, getting to a point of dismissing the case.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So it worked out.
But you still changed the name.
I did. So in the midst of that, right? So you're an entrepreneur, you're building this business, and you kind of get stuck. Like I had a cease and desist. So I did have to stop using the name. And I had two choices. I could either continue to, wait this thing out, figure out how to, play this legal game and figure out what happens, or I could pivot and change the name and continue to progress, my brand. And I decided the latter. And that's how her wine came into existence. And it means so much more because her is actually an acronym.
It is. What does it stand for?
It stands for having evolved repeatedly.
Well, that fits.
Yeah, right. It was a perfect timing.
It was. Well, and it even goes all the way back to your internships, like how you have continually evolved.
Yes. And that was the goal, right? We're on this constant journey of evolution, becoming better versions of ourselves, better parents, better spouses, better entrepreneurs, coworkers, anything. We wear so many titles. Yeah. And in that journey, I wanted to commemorate that, I wanted to honor that. And I wanted in that journey for us to take moments to pause. Cause I think that's the piece that we don't forget.
No, I think that's what we learned during COVID.
Yes.
That moment to pause was really important.
Yes. There was a lot of learning, I think, that happened during that moment.
Absolutely. So from that experience, what did you take away in terms of the process of trademark and the importance of trademark?
Yeah, there was a lot of learnings. I tell all entrepreneurs early on to trademark your name ASAP. Yes. ASAP. There's a lot to a value on intellectual property, right? So even with her wines, like as soon as I came up with that, I was like, trademark it, we're going copyright it immediately. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that can't be overlooked when you're looking at names to make sure it's available and there so you don't.
Doing your due diligence.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's my lesson to all. Do your due diligence. Google it.
Google it. So what kind of bold ideas helped you launch this brand in the middle of COVID?
So, it was really interesting. I actually wanted to start this brand when I really realized that there was a gap in the market in the wine industry. The wine industry is traditionally known to be a little, and I say with air quotes, snobbish, right?
Yes, I agree.
It's typically people who, grew up with family, like they're third, fourth generation winemakers. It's typically associated with a kind of sophistication and class, but it's exclusive. You don't feel like you can be a part of that community unless you're in it. And I wanted to create something that was a little more relatable. I wanted to create something that people who may not be wine connoisseurs could still appreciate. They still enjoy a good glass of wine, but they don't really care what region it comes from. They don't care what varietal it is.
We just care how it tastes.
How does it taste? And what is it? Does that name resonate with me? Yeah. And my reason for why. So that on top of a lack of diversity in the market as well.
Absolutely.
That was a big thing.
Especially in wine.
Yes.
There is no diversity really.
Yeah. It's very one-sided. I think the last statistic I saw was that, as far as African-American winemakers, we make up maybe 1%.
Yes. I would be surprised if it was 1%.
Yeah.
So how's your journey been affected by being such a minority within this industry?
There were a lot of closed doors when I started. To be fair, I think not only was I coming in, I'm young. I started this business like 28. So I'm young, I'm African American. I have no wine experience other than just going and visiting wineries before. So that was, the most I knew. I made wine myself, but at home. So there's kind of like a, turn up nose there. So I would approach a lot of wineries just, asking questions, and they either were not willing to talk, or they were like, no, we just don't do it. Because not only was I trying to make, wine, I was trying to make flavored wine.
Heaven forbid.
Yes, right. They're like, how dare you? We only do Chardonnay. I'm like, okay, I want to do a peach Moscato. Can we do it? So
I'm in favor of that.
Yes, see, but yeah, so it was a lot of closed doors. It took a lot of resilience, patience, and just being okay with people not seeing the vision that I see. And I think that takes a lot of courage sometimes, because it can be very frustrating when people, are telling you no, or that your idea is not going to work. I remember very clearly I had a woman that told me, no one's going to buy sweet wines. That's not a thing. And I was like, my whole brand is around this. And I just knew she was going to be supportive. And she was like, nope.
Oh, don't you hate that?
Yeah. So it's disappointing at times, but I think that those hurdles, getting those closed doors, right. It made me want it more. Yeah.
Step up.
Yeah, it did.
So you obviously found strategic partnerships.
Yes.
So are you being distributed now?
I am. So actually that's a new development.
Oh.
Yeah. So July of this year, I signed on with Kelly Family Distributors, and they are a Black-owned, veteran-owned distributor here in Atlanta, Georgia. One of the very few in the country. And so it's really, really cool to be a part of that movement.
That's a very unique combination.
Yeah.
So that really talks to the fact that you must have a great network.
Yes.
So how did you build that? Because I know our students and people out there, trying to find your network can be daunting. So how have you gone about that?
It's very intentional. Again, I think that's something that I started at a younger age, just, like I mentioned, even with the partnerships or the internships rather. I put myself in position to ask questions, to talk to people that were in the industry, to find mentors that were in equivalent or directly in the same industry. Like, for instance, to give a shameless shout out
that's
to,
okay, we like those.
Yes, to one of my mentors, Island John Vaca. Kevin John, yes, he's been such a great mentor, and even though he's not in the wine industry, still in the spirits industry, and so he really helped to propel me and put me in rooms that I normally wouldn't have been able to get in myself. So I think, seeking them, but I sought him out. I was very intentional. I took him to lunch. I was like, hey, I just need 30 minutes of your time. I'll take you to lunch, and the rest was history. And I think that's, when you're looking for ways to build partnerships, food is always a great way to build relationships.
Food and wine.
Yes, exactly.
I love that you had the chutzpah to go out there and ask him
to
really seek that relationship. I think that's wonderful. And it's really a great call to action.
It was helpful immensely. That $40 I spent on lunch was worth so much more.
So much more. So when you rebranded, tell us a little bit about how you came up with the brands for her wine.
Yes. So we have 6 in our collection in total, which is really exciting.
That is exciting.
But each of the names represent those moments where we deserve to relax and unwind. So we have Mama Needs a Break. Yep, that's our sweetened Merlot. We have In My Feelings, which is a peach apricot. That pays homage to us as women. We get dinged for being emotional when that's such a strength.
Yes.
So I wanted to pay honor to that. I have Girls Night In, which represents those moments where our community, our tribe is our therapy, and we need those moments to collide, especially coming out of COVID, right?
I was going to say, these are just so perfect with everything that happened.
It was definitely timely. And then we have Finally After 5. So that one was affectionately named Finally After 5 because it's for all of my working women. We work hard, and Finally After 5 means something different for all of us. Yes. Sometimes it's I'm turning it off, I'm done with work. Sometimes it's, I'm turning it on for my personal, ventures. So that one's a 15% peach Moscato because we need it.
Good times.
Good times. And the 2 newest ones we just released last month.
Ooh.
Yes, I'm so excited. It's a sparkling Riesling and a sparkling Rosé, and they're named A Toast to Me.
Oh.
Yes. And the idea behind that is, sometimes we as a society need to reframe how we celebrate. We choose to delay our happiness sometimes for these big moments. And I feel like, especially with my personal journey, especially this year, I've learned so much the importance of just taking every day and finding joy in those moments. So we should celebrate, there's so many wins. You didn't go off on anybody on 285 in traffic. Mm-hmm. Celebrate.
You aren't kidding. So I know you talked about Finally After 5.
Yes.
Are you still doing the 9 to 5?
I've been really fortunate this year. I had some personal life changes that happened, and you have to find the silver lining sometimes. And the silver lining was that this allowed me the opportunity to focus on my business full time. So I'm super proud to say that this year is my first year of full-time entrepreneur.
That's awesome. So you've made that transition.
Made the transition.
So how did it feel?
Scary. Very scary.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
How did you step through the fear?
I think I made a plan. So
awesome.
I know sometimes you hear different stories about how people enter entrepreneurship. It's just like something happens, they cut it, and then, it's just like next thing you know, they quit their job or they get let go, and then they're forced into it. I wanted to be a little more strategic.
I'm a strategic girl.
Yeah, I needed that safety cushion. So I was saving up till I figured out how much I needed for me to at least have a year's worth of funds to be able to be comfortable. So if I'm not working, what can I do?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I kind of planned for it in a way. It came sooner than I expected, but it was okay. So, from that planning, it put me in a position to not be as nervous about taking the leap. But it's super fulfilling, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
That's awesome. Well, I know this past year has been one where you've been doing some battles that have nothing to do with wine.
Yeah.
My sister is also battled the same beast of breast cancer. So how have you been trying to balance that healing journey and then this entrepreneurship journey together?
Yeah, to be very, very honest, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, it threw my whole plans for a loop.
Right.
Because I was expecting to kind of enter 2022 with like really high goals, and there was just a lot of things I wanted to get done. I had to learn to give myself a little grace because going through chemo and surgeries and radiation, it takes a toll
on everything.
Yeah, it takes a toll. And so there were moments where I was beating myself up. I'm like, you're not doing enough. You're supposed to be like pushing your business and getting this far. And I had to have like a come to Jesus moment essentially with myself. Yeah.
You needed to have some of your own wine.
Yes, I did. I had to take my own advice, and I had to practice pausing and realizing that everything happens in its due course. And really reveling in my wins, because there were some major wins that happened. I had my first festival, that was super cool, like my first wine festival. And I got my first like corporate accounts, and there was a lot of really great things, but and I had to realize like I can't put too much pressure, like despite other things going on personally, you still have positioned yourself and your business and pushed it forward, hitting major milestones. So it took balance, I would say is it's a cliche word in the sense that, there wasn't really a balance. There's sometimes where I had to put more energy into personal, development and healing.
Absolutely.
And there were other times where I was fortunate I could just push my business. So it was a sliding scale.
So did your business, you think, help you in your healing journey?
It did. It was funny when when you first get diagnosed, you have to go through like all these, doctors and they're just doing all these tests, right? And but one thing that was consistent with my doctor team was that they always ask like, what do you do and what are your hobbies? And I always, immediately I get into wine and I just light up, right? Like it's just like, I do wine. They're like, what? So we always have fun conversations, but I think it was the outlet that I needed. It gave me something to focus on. You have moments sometimes when you're hit with a diagnosis like this where you're not sure what the outcome will be.
Right. You
hope for the best, but you don't know. And there were some moments, because I got diagnosed with a very aggressive form of breast cancer, and I was diagnosed at stage 2. And they told me, I had a month to get some things in order and to start treatment, or it would progress to stage 4. So so I didn't have a lot of time. And so I say that to say, I needed something to live for.
Right.
As silly as that sounds.
No, that's not silly.
It was, wine really helped to give me something to focus on, to get my mind off of, what was going on out externally, and to have something to continue to push for.
Well, and evolving.
Yes. See how it works out.
It did. Well, I am so grateful. I know you're also not the typical age for breast cancer. So I think it's a great reminder for all of us to be vigilant. Be vigilant, get checked. I think that's very, very, very important. I'm 32 and no family history. So
I do encourage everyone, you don't know. And if you feel something, check it out. Don't wait. Like me, don't wait.
No, I'm glad that you got treatment, and I'm glad that you're continually evolving.
Yes, thank you.
So can you let our audience know where they can learn more about Her Wine?
Absolutely. So you guys can follow me. We're on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube at It's Her Wine. So that's our tag. And you can find more about the wine specifically at herwines.com.
Awesome. Well, Nicole, I can't wait to see where you evolve to next.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Building Bold Connections. This has been a Coles College and Joel A. Katz Music and Entertainment Business Program production.